Okay. I want us to give another round of applause to Justin Cabrillo, to Che Chen, to Talis Lee. These are all people that I both love to watch and listen to, and also with whom I have, my favorite dinners. I want to say thank you to so many people for coming out from so many corners of my life, my librarian friends and my poetry friends, my friends at the Park Slope Food Co-op, probably the people that I see the most, actually. My friends and family. I want to say thank you to Alan and Ben from the Song Cave for putting out this book and being really a pleasure both during and after the process of making it. I want to say thank you to Giorno for hosting tonight, to Talene for making soup, 2 soups for all of you. I want to say thank you to Laura for being such a good partner. And yeah, I want to give a lot of thanks to Che, who's helped so much in organizing this night and has always been such a supportive friend. I brought this with me tonight. It's a show card for a show that's opening in June in Dallas, so I don't think probably anybody's really going to make it. But the cover of my book is a photograph that was constructed in my friend Lena Takamori's studio. She's one of my oldest friends and is in the UK at the moment. But I'm just so grateful to be, forever in touch with her, in part because of the amazing work that she does. Briefly, the kind of like premise of the book, or the thing that I wanted to be with, was the degree to which wherever you look is possibly another shadow of death or of extreme violence, and to think about how not only how it permeates the world, these 2 forces, but also how we make it possible for these things to permeate. The epigraph, which I don't think I've read out loud yet, is, "After all, it's better to be frightened than to be crushed." Bela Lugosi. Yeah, it's been hard to, I wouldn't say, well, it has been so hard to live in this season where we're seeing such extreme production of death happening. But I also feel that it's a moment in which a certain thing that was always happening is being brought to light for us so that we can better respond to it. So with that, I will say free Gaza and free Palestine, and begin the reading. The Selkie. The fish will lick my fingers while I sleep deeply. The pineapple fish will unite all places savvily combined. A broken rose of fish drifts through clouds of baby formula to be berated by a dozing sea. Burrow, ochre craniates, cratered deep below the steam vents of the Marianas. I am claiming antlers of the sea. My hands rang back on sharp-edged antlers and the taking of a train across the bottom in the black. The antlers are the carotid vertebrae of a fish train, piled miles high. Adrift in clouds of scented soap, fried in corn oil, and served on plates of empty files. One fish turns to me to tease my lack of knowing. The clay pot is a motor structure that links tarnished extant terms like coils of a spring. David Blaine goes to a fish market looking for good sturdy props. The Four Corners. End of the day. The monger looks back at his stall. In the black plastic trough, just 4 fish remain. One curled in each corner in a shrimp-like decline. A whole batch arrives. Skinny, dead, unappealing, cheap. One day they will be fat, fresh, delectable, and worthy of no small expense. They laid in cosmic powder. Silver foam had formed around their pupils. Dad said summer wouldn't be the same if we were home and had to fly them out all that way. And Mom said, let's not forget how miracles happen in the first place. Go ahead, the monger said, touch. The monger stops the janitor for a chat. This one's salmon. This one's tuna. This one's halibut. These are sardines. This one's cod. These are anchovies. This one's herring. This one's a mackerel. This one's mahi-mahi. This one's John Dory. This one's turbot. This one's black cod. This one's skipjack. This one's Arctic char. This one's red snapper. This one is a sea bream. And this one is a sea bass. The janitor squints. Looks like fish to me. Big push broom shuttling the scales away. They're still alive? The monger's wife asked. Not exactly, the monger replied. It's just that they keep eating and shitting. Well, why do you keep feeding them? Because they keep eating, the monger screamed, angling back in his chair. That one is invisible. That one is perfectly clear. He turned. He continued pointing, very scanty fingers. That one was over there. That one was there before. The monger hates how seagulls circle. Birds, 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 he shakes his fist. Birds, birds every day. The seagulls love how mongers work. Fish, 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 they snap at her. Fish, 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 fish. flying fish angel, coconut horns on its back, a tiny cretin towed through the sky. Screeching like firebirds, sweet smell of a long jetty's foam, a gout-hobbled knee, pouring corrosively bright drops of water, so salty, so dense, silent shell goes far in the distance. The monger kisses each fish goodbye. The fish kiss back with hands across each eye. The monger's wife is home alone, typing into the search bar. Real mermaid, small breasts. Real mermaid, long hair. Real mermaid, long kiss. Real mermaid, arched back. Real mermaid, drying off. Real mermaid, taking bath. A fish wrapped in newspaper, given to the baby to read. The oldest and slowest wisdoms the baby acknowledged with a cry. "Shelter!" she shrieked. "Find shelter!" pressing fish to cheek. The prisoner of love continued, freshly rotting each new day. That one never had a mouth. It sucked on krill through its gill, just enough to stay alive. It had hunger-induced hallucinations that its siblings never had. Shared memories were sometimes remembered differently, as though different events, but they were definitely the same. They all communicated by clicking tiny bones in their jaws. The fishermen felt lucky. Where a slit should have been, there was a healthy bit of meat. And because it was only hanging from the hook by a fin wrapped twice around. They use fish to stain the skin around their eyes. They use fish to make sequins a dark color green. They use fish to find leaks in tools. They use fish to induce labor. They use fish to send messages to people who have died. They use fish to catch birds. They use fish to oil hinges. They use fish to fertilize corn, peanuts, garlic, and wheat. I spread mine on toast. I dip mine in coffee. I coat mine in flour. I bring mine to boil. I dress mine with oil. I chill mine on ice. I whip mine for custard. I drop mine for rice. You buy two, you drive them home. Late at night, you notice something stuck inside one's chalky lip. You reach in with finger and thumb. You reach a thin scroll. It reads, "After all you know, and Tibet is still not free." Munger had gone to the local library to see Chef Anthony Bourdain on his latest national book tour. It had been an inspiring night. In his opening remarks, Bourdain had said, "I've gotten along with people everywhere in this world, and I've heard some amazing stories, largely because I sit down without an agenda and ask two very simple questions. What makes you happy, and what do you like to eat?" The monger had thought tortilla chips, fresh ceviche, and cold Narragansetts while getting stoned with his wife at the end of September. Bourdain had said, "As I think I've said before, the presence of livestock or chickens in the dining room is often the mark of a good meal." The monger had tried to imagine a cow's head, so close to the table, so still and slow. He imagined reaching out to pet it, and everyone's eyes trained on his. Bourdain continued, "I was there for the full ride. How many times am I going to get to go to Vietnam in my life? How many times am I going to sit down with a table of Viet Cong war heroes in the middle of the jungle? So when they broke out the rice moonshine and everyone wanted to do a shot with the visiting American, I felt obliged to take full advantage of that magical moment. And also," he laughed, "there's a competitive urge." The monger remembered a current events assignment he'd had in high school, to summarize something from the evening news. When he got his back, the teacher had written, in big red letters, "The Nam in Vietnam is spelled with an A, not an O." Bourdain had said, "A good line cook never shows up late, never calls in sick, works through injury and pain. Working through pain and injury, that counts for a lot with me." The monger remembered his dream from that morning. He was back in the kitchen at Waterman's, the first kitchen he'd ever worked. Only it was totally empty, not even the stoves, and nearly pitch dark, cold tile floors and echoing walls. Old Luis was there, the tiny grow man. The monger couldn't see his face, just his head from behind, and his shoulders and stiff white cloth. He looked busy, moving forward toward the hall the monger followed. When suddenly Luis was behind the monger, pulling him from the neck down to the floor. Not a word or thought, just the weight of the man's complete control. Fear took the air from the monger's chest as he settled onto his knees. He looked up to where the dark wall met the dark ceiling and woke in a sweat, totally confused. Bourdain had asked, what type of person gets to be happy? And what type of person invariably doesn't? The monger had thought of the janitor before the latest janitor. It had been about 6 years since he'd been canned. The monger had thought they might see each other around, maybe at the bar nearby, but it hadn't happened yet. Bourdain had said, I often compare the experience of going to Tokyo for the first time to what Eric Clapton and Pete Townsend must have gone through the week that Jimi Hendrix came to town. You hear about it, you go see it. A window opens up into a whole new thing, and you think, what does this mean? What do I have left to say? What do I do now? The monger had thought back to another talk at the library, a filmmaker whose name he couldn't recall. She'd said the plan had always been for her greatest ambitions to be held at human scale. She'd said on her set everybody carries the lights, everybody cooks the food, everybody's tired, they set up the tents, everybody sleeps like it's part of the game. Who can go harder? Who can turn out the night's deepest dream? The monger thought of her every now and again when he surfed, which these days, with everything else, was only ever just a few times every year. "8 p.m. and lightly raining. The janitor takes a glance around the empty grounds before he goes. Shadow here and shadow there. Shadow over shadow. Echoes out, then echoes back. Negative space as compact cases. Empty tents, the tubs overturned and drying. Flagpole silhouettes against the gray-green sky. The janitor develops a sordid fantasy on his way out. He laughs and grimaces, being spun about his secret spike. The Selkie. Monday morning, a form of fish life walks into a hardware store. Guy behind the counter asks, "How can I help you?" In broken English, the form of fish life says, "Trash bags, bleach, plaster, tape." Guy behind the counter says, "Coming right up." He gathers the items, rings it up. He says, "That comes to $51.22. The form of fish life hands him 320s, takes the change, and drags the purchase out of the store. Tuesday morning, the form of fish life returns. Guy behind the counter asks, "Hi again, how can I help you?" The FFL says, "Hi, trash bags, bleach, plaster, tape." The guy behind the counter asks, "Already?" "Well, no problem." He gathers the items, rings it up. He says, "That comes to $51.22. The form of fish life hands him 320s, takes the change, and drags the purchase out of the store. Wednesday morning, same deal. For the rest of the week, the form of fish life comes in first thing each morning, asks for trash bags, bleach, plaster, and tape, pays with 320s, then drags it away. The following Monday rolls around. Guy behind the counter already has everything ready to go. The form of fish life walks in. Smiling, the guy behind the counter says, "All ready for you." He pats the items. The form of fish life waves its fin. "Not today. Today, nails, glue, cardboard." The guy asks, "Nails, glue, cardboard?" The form of fish life nods. The guy behind the counter shrugs, pushes to the side the items he prepared, goes to grab the nails, glue, and cardboard. He returns, rings it all up, says, "Comes to $12.61. The form of fish life hands him a 10 and a 5, takes the change, and turns to the door. Guy behind the counter says, "Guess I won't know what to expect tomorrow." The form of fish life turns, smiles, winks. "New week, new job," it says, before dragging the stuff out to the truck. Earth falls into heaven. When earth falls into heaven, then there'll be peace. When the floors let go of memories and heaven reaches out to take them up, reaches around us in our own hands and our eyes, when we reach out to grasp the air and the clouds dissipate, when the jet streams are struck by our hands and pulled to our faces, then there'll be music as the wind struggles, the music of a desperate world against the heads of small people. When motions and forces objectify our bodies, aimlessly, guiltlessly, events without memory. When there is no weather report and the birds have gone into separatism, then there'll be stillness, an extension of stillness that is its own form of land, a renewed chance for peace. When earth becomes a star and enters the world of heaven, then there'll be an emptiness that doesn't rob time in order to keep itself calm. Then there'll be another form in which to ferry peace. Think of me, I think of you, accruing of inferences, hot on the flecked trail of past meteors. Come in, I come to you, heavy with rattle, the kind of animals you carry too. People like monsters. People want to get squished or eaten whole, and not so secretly. People want a short distinction between life and death. Imagine the wholesomeness of curling into a dark throat, being a sucker once on the street and soaked in blood. You learn there, listen, last, gargles leaping down your body, 30 seconds. You think out loud, I'm close and no one's looking. Here's what destiny has to say in its God darkness. I love crowds in the stratosphere. I love crowds in the sea, of dust and charge, of tactic and gas, of feedback and flicker, of military green. Crowds that keep no bones, no meter. Crowds without below or aft. Crowds that leave no odor, no foam. They need elaboration. They are elaborate. They do not lack for trails of crumbs. Crowds are calluses, in spite of floating above the bottom, below the sea. Thank you.